We
So
always
we're
say
synced.
3, 2, 1. We in the broadcast, well, we used to, yeah, we'd be like 3, 2, 1, and then go. And right, you have to cut out that,
Yeah.
So
Hi.
yeah, yep, that's how you do it.
Do it. All right.
All right, 3 years at Powered Pause. I'm saying.
Yep. You say you start off like normal.
Oh yeah, is this number 3?
This
Versus
number
4.
4. Yep.
Woo! All right,
Number 4.
put 4 in. All right. Greenwood Baptist Church podcast number 4. I'm Courtney Weiss.
I'm Shane Blankenship. So today we're talking about the power of the pause.
Yes, I love how we came to this, and I'll tell you how we came to this is because you titled your sermon last week, Before You Walk Away.
Mm-hmm.
And you were talking about before you walk away from anything.
Yeah.
A marriage, a job, an opportunity.
Yep.
Am I missing anything?
I mean, that's pretty much a marriage, a job, an opportunity. I think I talked about where God has worked so hard to place you. Because that's kind of been a theme for the last couple of weeks of you're right where God wants you to be. Is it possible for us to even walk away from where God wants us to be? Absolutely. I think so.
So like when Shane and I were talking about before you walk away, there was this idea that there was like a moment that you could pivot or a moment that you could make a decision. Mm-hmm. There was just like this little moment in between, and we called it the power of the pause. And we were thinking that you would start with the power of the pause before you walk away.
Yep. And
it would be number 1, slow down. Number 2, pray. Number 3, seek counsel or find a prayer partner. Mm-hmm. And number 4, repeat. So I'll say that one more time. Before you walk away, find the power of the pause. The first thing is slow down. The second thing is to pray. The third thing is to seek counsel or find a prayer partner. And the fourth thing is to repeat.
Yeah.
Do you want to break these down and then we can get into the other side of it? Slow down. I had first said retreat because, in the Bible, it always says like Jesus retreated. But Shane was like, let's just try to tell people to kind of slow down, take a breath, think about things in a different light.
Yeah.
Maybe don't think things so personally.
Yeah. Well, I didn't like the word retreat because probably the military in me is like retreat. Yeah. Sounds like you're giving up or you're going away. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Which, I mean, there's something powerful about that too of giving up, especially if you're giving it up and giving over to God. And there are always moments I think that you need to, even in a military situation, like we call it break contact. So there are moments to break contact with the enemy. And there's a lot of different reasons why you would want to break contact. I mean, if you're being overwhelmed in the fight and you don't have the ability to do it, you want to break contact so that you can come back and fight again, not so that you can just die there, Yeah. So there's a lot of good reasons for that, or something happens and all of a sudden you don't have the firepower superiority. So this is all from a military perspective of break contact.
I know.
But it's not, it's not retreat. But even in that, especially thinking from an operational standpoint, if you're in the middle of a firefight, there's a mission in that firefight. You're not just shooting each other to kill each other. Like there was a mission involved in that. Once the mission becomes compromised, or once it becomes impossible to complete the mission, something along those lines, well then it may be time to break contact. So we're using language like, okay, well in our situation, whatever it may be, we're getting ready to walk away from a job, a marriage, kids, whatever it is, before you just walk away and be done with it, mm-hmm. Because, even so, to tie it back to the military perspective, breaking contact is I'm never coming back. No, I'm backing up. I'm slowing down this mission for a moment, and we're going to regroup, reorganize, whatever, and come back at it again.
So breaking contact means momentarily.
Absolutely, okay. Yeah. It's not a permanent.
I like breaking contact.
So slow down. I like that better than retreat. Like I'm running away because I don't want to run away from this. I don't want to run away from my marriage. I don't want to run away from my kids. I don't want to run away from an opportunity that maybe God's not done with just yet. So slow down before we walk away. Pause. The power of the pause. Slow down before we just up and hightail it out of there.
Well, and from a psychological perspective, one of my friends who's a therapist, she says to just breathe really deep and wait for 5 seconds, which I think is kind of even what you're saying. Even if it's 5 seconds, like we don't have to make a knee-jerk, reaction or say something that would hurt somebody's feelings. You just kind of hold your breath for 5 seconds and well, I need a minute. So in that power of the pause, before you walk away, first thing would be slow down. break contact, which I
Yeah.
really like. The second thing is to bring it to God. Just pray.
Yeah.
But then we took it a step further and like find somebody to pray with and for you.
Yeah.
And I love the story that you just told me off camera about what Jesus says about praying with other people and how that can kind of like affect not whether or not your prayers get answered, but like how God hears them.
Sure. Well, so Nazareth was what we were talking about.
Yes.
And Jesus says, or the text says that he could not do many miracles there, or he could do no miracles there, depending on which one you're looking at. And Jesus says it's because of their faith. So they don't even have the faith for him to heal. They don't have the faith for him to. One of the contexts is, he only healed a few people, as if
that's not good enough.
like as if it's a letdown. It's just a few. But I think what the text is speaking to in that scenario is it could have been so much more, but they didn't have the faith for it. So what are you doing when you're praying with someone who don't even have the faith?
Yeah.
I think of another story. This is I don't know how popular Tony Campolo is out there, but he was very influential in the 20 years ago when I was coming into ministry for the very first time, and big storyteller, and just had a great ministry. Again, I don't follow him. I don't know what he's doing these days, but there's a story about a kid who gets healed, and he's got polio. I think he had polio. I'm pretty sure is what he had, or something with his legs. I remember he had braces on his legs. And he was speaking at a university and it might have been Brown University, and they had this religious faith week or something along those lines. And anyways, he's like, I finished the talk up. I'm talking to people afterwards. This woman comes up and says, God sent me here. And he's like, you always got to be careful with people that God sent me here. And she said, God sent me here for you to heal my son. And Tony says, okay, like, lady, the Bible speaks of all kinds of gifts. There's tongues, gift of prayer, gift of healing, he's like, I don't have the gift of healing. This is not my gig at all. And he's like, the university chaplain kind of sees what's going on, and he's like, thank God for this guy. He comes over and he helps me out. And he just makes this announcement out of nowhere, and he says, anybody here who doesn't believe that this child could be healed today, I want you to leave right now, because not even Jesus can perform miracles in the presence of a lack of faith. And so he's like, so pretty much most people just left. And he's like, there's a few Pentecostal kids, already doing their thing. And he's like, okay, well, what are we going to do now? And he's like, listen, Campolo, if you don't know what to do, just do what the Bible tells. I mean, let's start there. So he's like, let's anoint the kid with oil and pray over him. And James speaks of that. So he's like, well, I don't have any anointing oil. I don't even know about that stuff. And so he goes back to the kitchen, gets Del Monte oil, comes back.
Okay, we need to go buy some Del Monte oil. Okay.
Right. Puts over the kid, they pray. And Tony, when he's telling the story, he says, it gets around to me. And he's like, and I start lifting up this, what he calls a phony prayer. He's like, mighty God, we beseech thee, using all these holy words. And he's like, and right in the middle of the prayer, he's like, I felt the Holy Spirit show up in that room.
Wow. And
he goes, and I freeze. He's like, I even stopped. He goes, I knew exactly what I was doing at that moment. He's like, I was being asked to pray over this kid and don't even have the faith to do it. And he's like, and I'm not so sure what I said next, but everybody finished up the prayers and the lady went on. And he goes, and a year later, I'm speaking somewhere else, and this lady comes up to me and she says, do you remember me? He goes, and I meet thousands and thousands and thousands, probably tens of thousands. Tony probably meets, the people at these conferences and stuff. And he's like, I'm looking at her. It's like, lady, I'm sorry. I meet thousands of people. And she's like, and he's like, I look over and the boy's there. And she goes,
the braces are.
He's like, what happened?
Oh
she said, you prayed. God told me, remember? And he's like, oh my gosh. And so, powerful story of faith and the power of faith and the power of prayer. Obviously, specific situation. There's all kinds of people that want to be prayed or want to pray for healing and they don't get healed. This kid does. So that's another road, I guess, that we could go down. But there's something powerful about praying with people who believe, but people who are faithful, people who said, you know what, we can take this to God. Mm-hmm. I know you're getting ready to walk away. I know this is hard. I know this is a struggle. I know you don't like where you are right now, but let's give it to God. Let's see what God can do. And so I do think that there's something powerful about that. And for the religious people that may be watching are like, well, shouldn't pray be number one? Yeah, probably. I'm not saying that it can't be number one.
Yeah.
But I think as far as from a like a human process.
Yeah.
The slow down part, the break contact, the hold on, wait a minute, I'm about to make a decision. That I think it would be foolish to try to even say that that doesn't come first, because we get there first and it's like, okay, now what are we going to do? Let's take it to God.
Well, and didn't Jesus do that? He kind of was like, I need a minute, and he would retreat. Is that not what the Bible says? He would go to sit by himself and be with the
withdraw.
Father.
That's
withdraw.
it. Withdraw.
Withdraw, not retreat.
Not retreat.
Okay.
Withdraw.
Fine. We're going to change it. Withdraw. So he would withdraw, and then he would spend time
with the Father.
Mm-hmm. And so that's in my mind. I'm like, before you walk away, there's like this moment where you can have, you can be aware of the power of the pause. So you would go and be with the Father. But before that, you have to go. You have to physically go somewhere or take a deep breath or just have a minute. So that's where we came up with that.
Mm-hmm.
I just love praying with somebody else. I love the whole idea. I love the stories that you just told us. And I know in my personal life, when I've prayed with somebody, I just feel like it's more powerful.
Sure.
I just feel better about the situation. And then number 4, we have repeat, just like keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, because a lot of times the prayers are going to get answered. We just don't know when. And there's just kind of, at least you're doing something if you're praying, I mean, a lot of times we want to do something, like when your kids get sick and they want you to do something. You're like, I don't know what you want me to do. Just pray. We'll just pray.
Absolutely. Well, and you said the prayers always get answered, and that's true, even if the answer is no.
Right.
But it certainly takes that communion with God, that time with God, to even be able to hear no.
Well, yeah.
And not just assume, well, I didn't get the answer. I mean, but when it comes to trust and faith and, hey, God's got this, the more time you're with God, I think the more okay we become with no.
Well, I'm still getting used to it, but this was an excellent segue, Mr. Preacher Man, because we're also talking about rejection.
Yes.
And that is a form of being told no.
Sure.
And when I was listening to the sermon on Sunday, it just, something in my brain, I wanted to talk to you guys about it. And I was like, did he feel rejected when all those people walked away from him? And I assume he didn't, because he's Jesus, but I would.
Yeah.
If 5,000 people walked away from me, I'd be like, well, okay. And so how do we navigate those?
Sure. He was absolutely rejected. There's no doubt that that is, for people to walk away from you, that's a form of rejection. Isaiah 53, it even prophesies, and I think in Isaiah 53 specifically, those first 6 or 7, 8 verses, I forget how many is right there, maybe 9. There's a reference to the cross and what happens on the cross. He's pierced for our transgressions. So there's a lot of imagery there, but one of the things that it says is that he was rejected and despised. And so can that be specific to the cross? Well, absolutely it is. But you see moments of people walking away, of rejection all throughout the Gospels, even with Jesus. Throws out the call to follow him, and there's so many instances where, well, this is a hard thing, or I don't know if I can, or the rich man. I think about the rich man, and Jesus says, well, go sell all your possessions, give everything to the poor, and follow me. Jesus knew where his heart was at, knew what he loved more than anything, and when Jesus called him to that, he did not choose Jesus. He chose to walk away. Well, that's rejection. Yeah. So, there's this, even one of his own followers, who, by the way, Jesus picked. Jesus picked Judas, and Judas would ultimately reject him and try to use him.
And that was a friend.
That's right. That's someone close to him. So he certainly gets rejected. And I think the 5,000 who ate the loaves and had their fill decided, all right, well, I'm not following you on this, this new calling, and they walk away. That's rejection. But I don't believe that Jesus feels it the way we do. And maybe that's even the wrong terminology as far as or processes, like dwells in the process the way that we sometimes do. So we get rejected and we can be overwhelmed by it, overcome by it, sends us into a downward spiral. We're worried about what they think. What did we do wrong? How can we fix this?
Well, we take it personally, and you brought that up.
Yeah.
So I think that we make it about us, and Jesus always was making it about his mission. Mm-hmm. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Take the words out of your mouth. Sorry.
Nope. No, that's awesome, because we make it about us, and we make it personal, and then all of a sudden, it's what could I have done? What did or what did I do, or what did I didn't do? And when we do that, then it's almost like we remove our faith and trust in God in it, because maybe yeah, so you were rejected, but maybe God has his hand on this rejection. And maybe the reason they walked away from you was because God allowed them to walk away. God's got something different for them. They're not going to be a part of this next leg of your journey. They're not part of this next part of your story. And so if they stay in your story, they're going to ruin your story. If they stay here, well, God can't do what he's going to do in their life. And it may delay what God is trying to do in your life. And so they walk away. So we could take that as rejection, or we could take whatever the instance was that caused them to walk away and go, well, what did I do wrong? What could I have done differently? And maybe that's not a bad thing to ask, but if you get caught up in that,
No, you're right. And I think that there's something to be said for just not spending too much time on it, not taking it personally, and maybe not even playing armchair quarterback, if you will. Like, what could I have done different? Should I have done this? Should I have done that? I do that a lot. I'm like,
yeah,
because I never want to hurt people, and I never want to
absolutely.
like be the one to, make something end or whatever. But I think it's a really good point, because then you just take God out of the equation completely when you're doing that. And I
Yep.
don't know if I've ever really thought about it like that. So not taking God out of the equation would be just giving it all to him, and maybe using this power of the pause, like the slowing down, praying with somebody, repeating that action so that you're constantly laser focused on the mission, or laser focused on your faith, or laser focused on whatever it is you're supposed to be laser focused on, and not all this outside stuff that could be. I mean, rejection does hurt.
Yeah,
It hurts, and it's confusing, and you're trying to figure it out. But I never thought about it in the sense of taking God out of the equation, and we never want to do that.
absolutely. Yeah, and the whole idea of pausing and slowing down for a minute, backing up, and breaking contact, or whatever the
Yeah.
language you want to use. Like, I think the whole idea of that is important because it refocuses our attention on God,
Yes.
or refocuses our attention on the mission. And since I know that the majority of our audience is Greenwood Baptist Church, and people who go here and belong here, like, this whole idea of rejection is something, and you and I were talking about this before we started the video. It's something that, I mean, we deal with all the time.
All the time.
And I think it's questions that I feel like I have to answer from some of you guys all the time when it comes to, well, why did someone leave? Why aren't they here anymore? Why did they leave? Why are they going there now? Or whatever the situation is. And yeah, I mean, we could just get bogged down and focus on that all the time. Why did they leave? And what's wrong? And it's not that we can't learn from those things, but we also got to believe that, yeah. So maybe that person left, and who knows? It could be any reason. But what about the person that God brought?
Yeah.
And so it would be really easy to get focused on those who are no longer with us, those who left us, and we forget about who's left. Right? Who's left here in the place. And that's a powerful theme all throughout Scripture, is that God is always using those who are left. He always uses the remnant, the people who stay behind. So
They keep showing up.
they're not a bad person because they left. Just God's got a different plan for them.
Right.
But we're still here. So if you want to be here and you're a part of what God is doing here, then jump in and keep your eyes focused. Yeah, we can learn from mistakes if we've made them, but we can keep moving forward with the mission that God's given us instead of getting caught up in the rejection,
Right.
and starting a downward spiral and getting thrown off track by the enemy, and everything just falls apart.
I mean, that just shows how laser focused you are on the mission to get people face to face with Jesus. You're like, I don't know why they left, but I'm trying to get people face to face with Jesus. Like,
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. I don't know why they left. And I think that's a lesson for all of us. Like, we just have to maybe, take a step back, like we said, invite God back into the situation and be like, okay, we got to pray about this, because I'm using all these worldly things like rejection to, try to navigate this situation, when all I really need to do is give it to God. And I know I struggle with that too. So this is a great lesson. We're going to slow down, or we're going to withdraw, or we're going to break contact. We're going to pray. We're going to seek counsel of someone that has some faith, so that we can believe that God's actually going to take care of it. And then we're going to repeat those actions as many times as we need to. Kind of like a recipe, repeat.
That's right. Sounds good.
Well, thank you so much. I thought this was great.
This is awesome today.
This is a word for somebody out there today, I think.
For sure. And hey, if you're with us, and this is something that you enjoy, like it
and
share it for sure, and then be sure to subscribe on the YouTube channel, because right now we're kind of kicking these things out on Facebook just to make sure that the word is out there, but we may not always put these out there for the world. Just as mission changes and as focus changes, if you're subscribing, you'll never miss one. But if for some reason we're not putting it out there to say, hey, there are new ones up. You'll know if you've subscribed because you'll get a notification.
Well, it's just really helpful if you subscribe anyway. So just do it. We thank you so much for watching today.
Yep. All right. We'll see you next
Have a
time.
great day.